I think probably since post-COVID, it's very difficult to put a definitive target on it. What we have been doing and ensuring that we do get is continue that growth. So at the moment, Indian arrivals to Australia is back to where it was in 2019. So it was our fastest recovering market, which is fantastic. And we know that the many Indian travellers that have come to Australia really enjoy it. And travelling in Australia, the wonderful experiences, the great taste that Australia has to offer. So, seeing that come back very quickly is, gives us a lot of confidence. But setting specific targets post-COVID has been difficult, and also because largely by aviation capacity as well. Yeah, I think it took a lot of people by surprise, and it really showed the appetite of the Indian consumer and the way in which that they wanted to not only to travel, but the experiences that they wanted as well. So I think one of the first areas that moved, and India and Australia have very, very close relationships from a people-to-people perspective, as well as a business perspective. There are many Indian families in Australia who call Australia home now, or call India and Australia home, relatives in both continents as well. So what we have seen, and the first movers were visiting friends and relatives, and we saw that globally. And I don't think India was any exception to that. But what we have seen is certainly a very big strengthening of the demand for holidays in Australia. So whether it be a short break or a longer break or a honeymoon or a family reunion, we've certainly seen a very big uptake. So to say we were surprised, I think we were surprised that it recovered so quickly, but we've always had confidence that Australia will continue to do very well in the Indian market. Look, as I said, VFR, visiting friends and relatives, and business and education are very important sectors for Australia, and they go to build those long-term people-to-people links. So for us to put a target on a holiday traveller, particularly when everyone's competing for capacity to and from Australia as well, would be difficult. What we have seen, though, in that is that we've seen a doubling of the holiday spend in Australia to about $2.2 billion. And so, where that has come through has been really important for us. And that's out of just the 382,000 12-month rolling total that we've seen come back so far. So it's not necessarily about volume, it's also about quality as well. And we want to ensure that, the Australian industry benefit from a broad range, from the luxury sector right the way through to people who are coming to study in Australia, or people coming to visit family as well. We also know that they do enjoy a holiday there. Yeah, look, VFR is a very important sector for any country that wants to receive Indian tourists as well. So VFR really goes to show the strength of the people-to-people relationship, and that strength between India and Australia. And I know many of my Indian friends who live in India have family in Australia, and many of my Australian friends have family in India as well. I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. I think that VFR traffic is still going to be very important, and it's good to have a mix as well. But VFR travellers are also counted as leisure travellers, because when they come to Australia, they still want to take a holiday. They still want to go out and have experiences, whether they want to dining experiences, walking experiences, walking on the beach, all of those sorts of experiences. People from VFR still do take that up. They may stay with family initially. They then might take a short break, a domestic holiday, but that's still an important sector as well. Look, I think certainly you would see a younger demographic of traveller coming, but also you see people's tastes and what they want to do change as well. So you're seeing more travellers coming to Australia wanting a more diverse range of experiences. It's no longer about just arriving in one of our beautiful cities. It's also about travelling to further destinations as well. So whether they be in regional Australia is also important. I think it's also, we're seeing people who want to get, and I think this might be more broadly post-pandemic from many countries, is wanting to get in touch with nature and wanting to have some outdoor experiences where the Indian travellers are coming to Australia, not just stay in the city. And we encourage all travellers to Australia to travel outside of the city, see our beautiful regional locations, and get to feel a different side of Australia as well, that have a different set of experiences, whether it be learning to surf, whether it be coming to one of the many beautiful restaurants in regional Australia, we do encourage that as well. So longer term, you will see travellers, particularly from India, wanting a more deeper experience and really wanting to understand what Australia has to offer, whether it be our Indigenous experiences or whether it be culinary experiences, getting deeper, what we say, lifting the hood up and having a good look underneath to see what Australia has to offer. Really good question. And I know that Nishant, our country manager in India, and we work very closely together, and we're often talking about the high yielding traveller, and it's a segment that I think Australia is not alone in going after, and it does build a halo effect around all travel, but particularly the high value traveller, or a high yielding traveller, is going to be important as well for everybody, and we've had some great success in that. And it might be at the very top end, it might be people taking a very, very expensive holiday. But also, what is the definition of premium as well? Australia's premium experiences might mean more about traveling to one of our beautiful islands. It might be about doing a nature walk in Tasmania over 3 days. There's some great opportunities out there that we see for attracting that premium market. But the high yielding market is not necessarily about it be staying longer, spending more, and doing more experiences. And I think that's where we will see that benefit come through from the work that Tourism Australia does in our consumer work, and also working with our partners right across India. Food and wine plays a big part in not only travellers coming to Australia, but Australians as well. Australians love their food and drink, and you see that sector and that segment come up quite often. So one of the things that we have done is to make sure that we show the right things to the right consumer at the right time in India. So it might be in a certain bringing forward food and drink for a set of consumers that are more attracted to that. It might be about our cities. It might be about wildlife. It might be about coastal and aquatic. And it's really around telling a story and all of the great things that Australia has to offer to that right consumer to really trigger them to think about coming to Australia, and then converting that business as well. And Restaurant Australia played a great part in that. But I've often said, and some of my friends say, that some of the best Indian restaurants are in Australia. So we'd encourage people to come down and do that. And some famous chefs in India as well, that in some great restaurants that I've eaten in both Mumbai and Delhi and Bengaluru as well. We know the standard that needs to be set, and Australia really goes out after that as well. You can play on two sides as well, and quite often our state and territory partners and the airports play a very direct role in the financial, the commerciality of it. Tourism Australia's role is to generate demand. And when I was a few months ago meeting with the carriers in India, whether it be Australian carrier and Indian carrier, we continually have that same message, and that is that there is significant pent-up demand for Australia as a tourism destination, as a friends and relatives destination, or as a business-to-business destination. So there's going to be demand. So we can give the assurance that demand will continue, and that we continue to invest substantially in the Indian market from a business to a consumer level. And you've seen Ruby, our mascot, the entire India cricket team were posting all of the great things that Australia has to offer. So what we have seen, though, is a 262% greater air increase. And by December, it'll be at 291% more direct capacity between India and Australia than what we had in 2019. And you just mentioned Air India's new flight from Mumbai to Melbourne, which is fantastic news for travellers in both those cities to be able to have that direct connection. Having direct connectivity has really ensured that it's easier and more seamless for people to come to Australia. And from a price point perspective as well, people quite often preference a direct service over a connection service, or they may have a connection service where they're going to do a stopover on the way in one direction to Australia. It doesn't really matter so much for that. But what has been that area that we work very closely in is driving that consumer demand, because if there's no consumer demand and there's no uptake, the commerciality of the service doesn't look as good, and airlines are less likely to invest in the future in more capacity, or don't put you into the capacity mix going forward for the next season if the demand's not there. So if we do our job well, airlines have confidence to add capacity, knowing that it'll fill. but also we continue to meet and talk with all of the carriers on the route. And just so more recently at World Routes in Istanbul, only 2 weeks ago, meeting with Air India to discuss what we're doing and to also find out what's happening there. And our job can be, we do a lot of joint campaign activity with our airlines globally and with our travel partners globally. And that's about stimulating demand, getting into the conversion end of the consumer funnel. And that's important too, that the airlines see that we can do that work with them and generate passenger numbers in areas where there might be less demand, but also to give them confidence that that we will be there to work with them into the future as well. Good question. I don't have the answer, and I would defer that to Home Affairs to answer that. I think, and speaking to travel agents and to friends there, there's no problems getting visas. Getting visas, it's very easy process. And it's very quick to get an Australian visa. So, I think we're leading from the forefront on that at this point as well. So, I think that from a government to government level, we've seen both our prime ministers meet on a regular basis. It might be a question you can pose to both the prime ministers into the future. I think Couple, it's a very difficult thing to get into, educate tourists. I think Indian people are deeply spiritual and respectful and love to travel and explore and to do that. And Australians love to travel, as we know. So I think, the respect for local customs, culture, and the way things are done should automatically flow from a tourism perspective. And I think people will do that. On the other side, we have also partnered with ATEC, the Australian Tourism Export Council, to deliver an India host program, which is squarely aimed at Australian travel businesses, whether they be food and drink or catering or experiences or hotels, where they can enroll their staff to do an India host so that they understand the needs and wants of the Indian traveller. And we saw a really huge uptake of that program. So it's people in tourism training themselves up to understand the Indian tourist as well. And so therefore, it might be around dietary requirements, but it might be about the style of the service. And then that also then takes any of the angst away for the traveller, because they're dealing with someone who understands them more deeply as well. So from a tourism perspective, it's important that not only the travellers travel respectfully, but industry, whether it be in Australia or whether it be in India, understand the cultural differences and can accommodate that within their tourism product or offering.